Hi guys, welcome to Visual Basic tutorial number 7, and in this tutorial we are going to be covering functions. Now, a function, its primary use is to reduce the amount of code that you have to write by being able to carry out basic operations or procedures that might come up multiple times in the program. And I'm going to give a quick demonstration of what a function is, and in this tutorial the function that we're going to create actually isn't going to be that much use, but it will give you an idea how it works in simple terms, and you'll be able to understand how a function is built and how it's used. So first of all, I'm going to point out that most of the writing of code that we do has been between the submain and end sub. Now when you write your function, you actually write up at the top here, and what you do is you write function to say that it's going to be a function. You then write the function name, and let's call this function calculate, because this function is going to do a calculation. You then put a open bracket, and you can write either by ref or by val. Now don't worry what they are at the moment, I'm just going to use by val for the time being, and I'll probably explain in a later tutorial what by val and by ref actually mean. And what we basically write here is the parameters we want to use in the function itself. So say for instance we want to add two numbers together inside of a function. We want to pass the two numbers to the function. So by val num1 as an integer, we'll use integers for this, and then you add a comma, and by val num2 as integer. And that basically means that you're going to pass two variables to this function from the main program. You then finally write as integer, and this final declaration of what the variable is going, what data type it's going to be, is what data type is going to be returned from the function. So here we've used integer because this function is going to return an integer value. However, we could return a string or a double, and the actual return of the function doesn't have to be the same as these in here. But for this purpose, we're going to use integer because we're going to be returning an integer from the function itself. Now we can actually skip along to the main program. So let's dim num1 as string. Pardon me. So screw that up. Dim num1 as integer, and dim num2 as integer. And now we want to prompt the user to enter two numbers to be added together. So console.writeLine, in fact I'll use a write so we can get used to practicing this. Write enter number 1. And you'll actually see this in practice now, how instead of using a write, how using a write instead of a write line sort of uses less lines on the console. Num1 equals console.readLine, console.write enter number 2, and there we have it, and num2 equals console.readLine. There we go. And now we want to call the function to basically give us the answer. So what we write to call a function is the function name, and we've named the function calculate. So we write calculate, open bracket, and then we write the two parameters, num1, num2. Now it's important to note as well that the two parameters that you pass to this function don't have to be the same name. And I'll show that by putting this as num3 and num4. I'm sorry if this confuses you a little bit, but I'll just show you quickly that you can actually pass num3 and num4 to this function. And because this function only uses num1 and num2 in here, num1 takes the value of num3 and num2 takes the value of num4 just for this section of the function. I'm now changing these back so that it doesn't confuse things in a moment. And bear with me while I do this. Num2. So what will happen is num1 and num2 will pass to this function. And what we want to do is actually do the calculation here. So let's dim answer as integer. And then write answer equals num1 plus num2. And you're probably wondering, well, why has he done it like this? He could have easily dimmed an answer down here, and then wrote answer equals num1 plus num2 down here. But, as I said at the start of the tutorial, this probably isn't the most useful function. However, when you're writing a long sections of code, you'll probably actually find that you do end up repeating a lot of code, and that's when functions can come in handy. And as I said, this is just so you can understand functions in a simple and easy to understand way. You then, underneath here, write return answer, and that basically gives this the value of this answer, num1 plus num2. And we want to write that out to the screen. So let's do a console.write line, and we'll write the function out to the screen. Console.readline for a little pause at the end. Save it and run it. Enter number 1, 5. Enter number 2, 5. And the answer is 10. And it's added the two numbers together. So, just as a little recap, what's happening is the user is entering a number 1, and that's taking the value of num1. And they're entering a number 2, and that's taking the value of num2. The function is then called within a console write line. And what that basically means is it's going to write out the value of this to the screen. And this value takes the value that is returned from the function. And the function's name is calculate. So num1 takes the value of num2, num2 takes the value of num2 here. It then does the calculation and returns the answer, and that's what gets written out to the screen. So I hope that's been quite easy to understand. If not, do let me know, and I'll try and do another tutorial to hopefully try and explain it a bit better. So yeah, thanks for watching, and subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.